President Joe Biden unveils his massive infrastructure plan. AOC says calling the surge at the U.S.-Mexico border is white supremacy, and the show The Office is under attack for its portrayal of Asian Americans. And I have a lot to say about that. Before we get into our lead story today, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. It does help push my video out there to viewers who have not seen my videos or my channel. And also, please don't forget to hit that bell notification so you are notified every time we go live, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our lead story today comes from our friends over at the Daily Wire. If you're not already a member, please go over and become a subscriber today. It is titled, Biden Unveils Massive Infrastructure Plan, calls it once-in-a-generation investment. It starts off by saying President Joe Biden formally announced his $2 trillion infrastructure plan. Yes, I did not mess up. $2 trillion infrastructure plan in a speech Wednesday, giving the first official glimpse of a massive proposal he proudly declared would be the largest investment in American jobs since the Second World War. The plan would be Biden's second major legislative initiative, which would allocate $621 billion for transportation-related infrastructure, $300 billion for drinking water-related infrastructure, broadband and electric grids, and $300 billion for affordable housing and upgrading schools, according to CNBC News. Furthermore, $400 billion would be reportedly going towards the care for elderly and disabled Americans, and $580 billion would be used for domestic manufacturing, job training, research, and development. It goes on to say Biden said his economic vision contains two parts: the American Jobs Plan, which is part of his infrastructure bill, and the American Families Plan, which he plans to speak more about in the coming weeks. It's unclear if he wants them as part of the same package or not. Basically, they're saying there's an opportunity that, yes, this infrastructure plan is $2 trillion, but he could also push another plan, the American Families Plan, which could be another, I don't know, $1 to $3 trillion, because money grows on trees, folks. Isn't that just, it's mind-boggling to think, where the heck does all our tax money go? I'll give you a prime example. I live in California, one of the worst states in the union, and we pay a lot just to fill up our tanks, to fill up our cars, pay for gas. We have a gas tax. That gas tax is supposed to pay for the roads. Our roads are crap here. Potholes everywhere, bumps everywhere, cracking everywhere. It's not being managed, it's not being taken care of. And the purpose of me bringing that up is, where's our money going? Because clearly it's not going to fixing the roads. So who's getting that money? Where is it all going? And the same thing's happening here. Why is our tax money not paying for infrastructure already? We pay up the wazoo in taxes. So where's it all going? Are we paying government employees a ton of money to do nothing? They're not fixing the roads. They're not fixing the bridges. What are they fixing then? Where is it going? It needs to be audited. It needs to start being called out for what it is. And it seems a little sketchy to me that now you want to spend $2 trillion on something that should have been fixed in the first place through our tax dollars. It's just constant spending from our government. Right, left, center, middle, wherever you're at, somebody's constantly spending money. It needs to stop. It is frustrating. On an individual basis, all of us, we don't just get to spend a ton of credit. And if we do, we go bankrupt. Things happen to us. But for some reason, the United States government is just continually able to take out debt on credit. They have to take out more money just to pay off the interest on our debt. And now this idiot wants to spend $2 trillion. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it sucks that our next generation, maybe my generation, is going to have to pay for this. Meaning you're going to have to increase taxes. Going to slow the growth of the economy. It's going to mess with the global economy. And it's so funny because Democrats think, oh, you're hurting the working class. You're hurting the poor. The rich are just getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. You think this is going to help anything? You think that this is going to fix that inequity and that injustice that you're claiming for the last decade plus, that's going to all of a sudden help people? You're screwing everybody, man. And nobody calls this stuff out. I don't see Ben Shapiro doing it. I don't see Steven Crowder doing it. I don't see the Hodge twins doing it. I love those guys. I watch them. I look up to them. But this stuff needs to start being front page of the news, because We're digging ourselves a deep hole here, folks. And somebody's going to get screwed. It's either going to be us or it's going to be future generations. And I don't think it's right for other generations to have to pay for the injustices of the current generation. You heard me talk about that about a few days ago or a week ago with, I think it was Illinois trying to push reparations out there, or actually being the first place to actually do reparations. And I don't think that people who aren't racist today, haven't committed any injustices, should have to pay for somebody else's crimes from the past. I don't think that's right. And this is what's happening here. Our taxpayer money should be going into transportation already. It should be going into the drinking water related infrastructure, broadband, electric grids. All that stuff should already be handled. It should not have to be paid for with an extra $2 trillion to fix it. It's just frustrating. This is one of my top issues that I have with the government, because I don't think it's right. I think it's theft at the end of the day. You're taking money from the taxpayer that should already be paid for. And I'm going to keep repeating myself. Where is it all going? Does anybody know? Anybody watching this have any clue where the hell our tax dollars are going? Because I don't think anybody does. And I think it's just going to people that are sitting around not fixing anything, and they're just getting paid $200,000, $300,000. You hear it all the time. I know people getting paid easily six figures that work for the SoCal gas company, and they don't do anything. They legitimately don't do anything. And we just let it go because we think it's right for people to make six figures that don't do a single thing. They don't fix anything. And this is why we have to spend $2 trillion on infrastructure, because we think it's a great idea to pay somebody $200,000 to sit around and click a button. But with that being said, we also have more news that doesn't make sense. The surge that is happening at the U.S.-Mexico border is still happening, and they can't fix it. They can't wrap their head around it. They're having 6,000 people come in a day. They're expected possibly 1 million people by the end of the year. That is nuts. If that's not a surge, I don't know what is. But according to AOC, that's white supremacy. We'll get there in a second. But there's a video here, and Blaze Media is reporting on this. Border Patrol video shows smugglers dropping a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old girl from a 14-foot wall. What is going on with people sending their children here unaccompanied? I've talked about this tons of times. You don't know these smugglers. You don't know if they're going to rape your kid. God, that's even terrible coming out of my mouth thinking about a 3 and 5-year-old. But, you know, the left doesn't care. AOC doesn't care. Schumer doesn't care. Pelosi doesn't care. Biden doesn't care. Harris doesn't care. They just pretend to care. We heard about it for years that Trump is a Nazi. He's a racist, a bigot, homophobe. All these things for closing down the border so stuff like this wouldn't happen. But it's okay when Biden does it. And I was talking to my leftist friends. They're, oh, the left are outraged. We're all outraged. But we're not going to post a single damn thing on social media like we did for years. The hypocrisy, and they're so blind, their head spins. They can't see crap. It's so frustrating, because how do you have a conversation with somebody that can't see past their self? They can't see their own hypocrisy. In the same sentence, they can't see that they contradicted themselves. How do you have an intellectual conversation with somebody like that? You can't. I have people that are open socialists that don't think they're of the left. That just happened today. I have one of my friends that watches this show. She knows what I'm talking about. They are literally an open socialist, and they think they're not somebody of the left. Then what are we talking about here? It's so mind-boggling. But we have here, it says the U.S. Border Patrol released disturbing video footage Wednesday showing smugglers dropping a 3-year-old toddler and a 5-year-old sister from a 14-foot border wall, leaving the little girls exposed in the desert as they fled back into Mexico. No, folks, they didn't go with the 3-year-old and 5-year-old. They just dropped them off and said, peace out. But let's go ahead and take a look at this footage. Isn't that just lovely? I mean, they're here now, right? So now we got to pay for their education, their child care, their housing, food, water, clothing, all that stuff. But even more than that, that's not even what really bugs me here. What bugs me here is, what would they have done when they dropped those children from a 14-foot wall and their legs would have broke? Both of them. What would they have done? Would they have left them there? What if their leg protrudes out? What if their leg snapped so bad that it hit right through the artery and they bled out? This is the stuff the left doesn't think about. They're just cool with it. Oh, look they made it. Oh, yay. Yay, they're here. And it just, does nobody think about this stuff? That this is happening? Does nobody care? I mean, I get the conservatives and all you care. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the left and the Democrats. When I say you, I specifically mean the Democrats and the left. They pretend to care. If they did, this crap would be stopped. You'd have higher than a 14-foot wall. We should build a 100-foot wall. Because clearly they're making it over. That's where that $2 trillion should be going. Clearly you don't have an issue with spending shit. Forgive me for cussing. I will repent later, I promise. But I just don't understand how you could spend $2 trillion on infrastructure willy-nilly like that. And that's what you're talking about right now. But you have 6,000 people coming across your border every single day. You have children being dropped off by these smugglers while they'll go back into Mexico, make more money. And these children are left there to, I guess, be picked up by Border Patrol. I don't know what happens to them. But this is unbelievable. And the parents are clueless for doing this. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to walk across the street when I was a kid, let alone my parents sending me across the desert with two randos. God only knows what they're doing with those kids. We know some of them are being drafted, or I don't even know what you call it, recruited into these violent gangs, into the cartels, used to smuggle drugs back and forth. But that's not an issue. But, according to AOC, this is all just white supremacy. We have another story here by Blaze Media. It says AOC, or Ocasio-Cortez, says calling the migrant crisis a surge is white supremacy. But she should have checked her tweets. You gotta love it. Everything to the left is white supremacy. Everything is racism. Everything is bigot, sexist, homophobe. Xenophobic. Everything. My problem with just that statement in general, is that you're diminishing actual racists, or you're diminishing the idea of racism. When you're out there crying wolf constantly, when now you actually see a racist, say that she actually sees one, right? And she calls that person out for being racist. We're not going to believe her. I'm not going to take the time to look up every single person that you think is racist now, because you're constantly doing it. And the boy who cried wolf, that's exactly what's happening here. And that's all she does. And the chick doesn't make any sense when she talks. It says here, socialized firebrand Republican. I haven't read this yet, but that's great. Let me backtrack. Socialist firebrand Representative AOC should have checked your own tweets before claiming that the use of the word surge is a white supremacist philosophy. AOC went off on the use of the term when referring to the migrant crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border during Instagram Live Ask Me Anything session on Tuesday. Let's go ahead and take a look what she had to say.
Are you for real? So let's talk about this, because so much of our national conversation, which is not a conversation about immigration, is driven by people who could not care less about immigrants. Often people want to say, why aren't you talking about the border crisis? Or why aren't you talking about it in this way? Well, we're talking about it. They just don't like how we're talking about it, because it's not a border crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. It's a climate crisis. It's a trade crisis. And also, it's a carceral crisis, because as I have already said, even during this term and this president, our immigration system is based and designed on our carceral system. Those are some of the problems. What about the solution? Well, number one, our solutions need to be rooted in foreign policy, because our interventionist history in foreign policy and history over decades of destabilizing regions drive people to. But people don't want to have that conversation. Secondly, let's talk about the climate crisis, because the U.S. has disproportionately contributed to the total amount of emissions that is causing a planetary climate crisis right now. But who is bearing the brunt of that? Disproportionately, it's actually not us. We help create the problem, but disproportionately, it's the global South. It's South Asia, it's Latin America that are going to be experiencing the floods, wildfires, and droughts in a disproportionate way, which ding, ding, ding has already started a migration crisis. But people don't want to have that conversation. Then we have the issues of trade, which economically contribute, can have contributions to some of these conditions that add fuel to the fire. But people don't want to have that conversation. They want to say, what about the surge? Well, first of all, just gut check, stop. Anyone who's using the term surge around you consciously is trying to invoke a militaristic frame. And that's a problem. Because this is not a surge. These are children, and they are not insurgents, and we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy. The idea that if an other is coming in the population, that this is like an invasion of who we are. Lastly, it's like, okay, we don't want to talk about this, that. But if you do want to zero in on the conditions of this moment, because we don't want to deal with the contributions we made to helping create this moment, but we now want to deal with the last minute symptoms of it, you can look at our carceral system. And that this is what Black and abolitionist organizers have already been talking about for a long time.
And her response is, are you for real? Obviously, they are for real. Everybody's asking where you're at. When Trump was in office, you went and take some doctored fake photos. I don't see you down here creating an uproar. You're just out there pretending like you care, lady. You don't care at all. You say crazy crap that nobody can comprehend and make sense, not even yourself. And you just spew this diarrhea caca mouth. And somehow you keep getting elected. And it is, I want to know who's electing you. That's the weird thing. There's a story for everybody, right? How the heck is AOC getting back in office? How is she even there in the first place? But these are the people that we want to handle our money. And this is why $2 trillion is probably going to get passed, because you got a bunch of idiots in office, politicians that don't even know what they're doing. And again, it's not just left. It's not just Democrats. There are some idiotic Republicans out there too. If we're going to call people dumb, then those that do dumb things should be called dumb. Left, right, or center. It doesn't matter what side you're on. And I think that's important for Republicans and conservatives to carry that idea and that narrative out there, that regardless of who's doing something idiotic, it affects all of us. And so we should all be on the same page for this. And I think Republicans and conservatives do that way better than the left and Democrats do. I don't think the Democrats and left call themselves out on anything. But I think you have, again, me, Ben Shapiro, anybody at the Daily Wire, the Hodge twins, Steven Crowder. I think we do a great job of calling our own people out and say, look, it's a problem. That's a stupid thing to do. Please stop doing it now, or else we're not going to put you back in. But it says here, AOC has been criticized by many for appearing to be much more incensed about kids in cages at the border during the former Trump administration, that's what I just talked about, than the current administration under President Joe Biden. It says here, the hoarding of wealth by the few is coming at a cost of people's lives. The only way we change is with a massive surge of new voters at the polls, she tweeted in 2019 in a reference to elections in the United Kingdom. So it's okay for her to utilize the word massive surge or surge, but it's not okay for us today to utilize the word surge, because that's white supremacy and it doesn't fit into the narrative. Now, if you were to look up the definition of surge, it's exactly what's happening at the U.S.-Mexico border. There is a surge happening. It has nothing to do with white supremacy, has nothing to do with climate change like she's talking about, has nothing to do with trade, has everything to do with Mexico's handling of their own situation happening there, from the drug cartels, the military, violent gangs. They're not getting themselves under control. Everything is corrupt over there. That's why people want to come over here for a better life, because they can't get their own, under handled or under control over there. And so we're having to deal with this over here. Whereas if Biden just continued building the wall like Trump wanted, if he just continued to keep Trump's policies in place, he wouldn't have this surge, this white supremacy surge happening. But, the left can't figure that crap out. They just want to constantly shout racism. They're there for the vote. They want these people to be legalized so that now they have 11 million voters, because that's roughly how many undocumented or illegal immigrants are in our country. 11 million. Isn't that nuts? Think about how much we pay in services to these people that don't pay into the system. And they go, oh, well, they pay. Fine, in sales tax, they pay. They still receive more than what they pay in. So it's still costing us money at the end of the day. Why don't you take that money and put it towards infrastructure then, Joe? Why don't you take those billions of dollars that we're spending on people that shouldn't be here in the first place, maybe build a wall with it? Maybe send that money and build bridges. Do something with it. Don't continue to hit us upside the head for $2 trillion now. And by the way, it might go to be more than $2 trillion because I reported on that he's talking about a $3 trillion package minimum. Remember, and if you haven't seen that, I'll try to put a card above. Look for the video. He wants to spend $3 trillion or more than $3 trillion to pay for extended paid leave or nationalized paid leave, I should be more specific, child care expenses, community college for adults. Why should we have to pay for any of that? It's your decision to go to college. If you want to go to college, then you should pay for it, not me. Nobody paid for my college. I'm still paying student loans. I'm not asking for a government bailout. It was my decision to walk down to the bank and take out that loan. It wasn't your decision. It wasn't anybody else's decision. It was my decision. And I shouldn't expect you as the viewer, the taxpayer, the American citizen, that to pay for my, I don't know. I don't think it's a wrongdoing. It was my decision. And I don't expect anybody else to pay for it. But the idea of the left is everybody owes them something. There's some sort of victim mentality out there that some nameless, faceless, shadowy figure owes you something because you were held down for some ungodly reason. Somebody out there in the ether that you've never met somehow held you down. It's stopping you from succeeding. It's stopping you from waking up in the morning and doing something about it. And it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable thinking. And you wonder where they get this from. Partially it's due to, yes, the media, yes, the Democrats, yes, definitely their parents, but it's also the stuff that's being pushed in school. And that's something I teach my kids. There's nobody out there that's trying to keep you down for being successful. There's nothing stopping you where you're going over compound interest. There's nothing stopping you from going into the bank or going to Charles Schwab, Vanguard, putting $100 in a year and having it diversified and being okay in life in 30, 50, 60 years. There's nothing wrong with you doing that. There's nothing stopping you as a teenager right now from getting a job at In-N-Out, Carl's Jr., McDonald's, any of these fast food joints. Nobody's stopping you from going out and getting a job. Yes, are there racists out there? Absolutely. Are there white supremacists out there like AOC's talking about? Absolutely. But it is a surge white supremacy. It is not. And she's being called out for her hypocrisy here because in 2019, she writes a tweet utilizing surge. It wasn't white supremacy then, but all of a sudden it's white supremacy now because Biden administration's in office and their handling of the U.S.-Mexico border is absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. And it's going to continue to get worse because if they haven't figured this out in, 2-3 months, all of a sudden the light bulb's going to go off and all of a sudden they're going to fix it later. I don't think so, man. I don't know what is going on in the West Wing. I don't know what is happening. But if I'm sitting here confused, you're probably confused watching this. Even the Democrats are starting to be confused. You know things are chaotic in the West Wing. They don't have a clue what's going on because Joe doesn't know what's going on. By the way, the guy, a little bit going off on a tangent here, the guy almost fell up some stairs again. Going on Air Force One, he almost fell again. If you watch it, he clips the step again. The guy is not healthy, man. This is not good. And he's our president. We should all want him to be successful. Democrat or not, he is still our president. This is the guy, if we go to war, is going to be leading everything. You have China there, Russia, not good people. The people there are nice, but the government itself, that's more what I'm talking about, is not good. And this is the guy that's supposed to be commander in chief? I don't know, man. It's not good. Speaking of things that aren't good, we have another story here from our friends over at the Daily Wire. It is written by Amanda, and she titles it, Actress Calls Out The Office Over Problematic Portrayal of Asian American Character. When did this show go off air? It's a great show. I've seen it all the way through twice. Tons of episodes. It's an amazing show. So if you haven't seen The Office, go check it out. But it says here, as an Asian American actress who had a small part in an episode of The Office, has condemned the NBC show for its problematic portrayal of Asians. The left just loves taking comedy out of everything. You can't just make fun of anybody anymore or joke around. If somebody made a joke about a white person, I wouldn't care. I think it's funny. Not a big deal. I'm not going to take it to heart. It's a joke. Let things go. Lighten up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like everything's political with these people. It's like comedy is the one thing that kind of takes you away from everything. Do you know what I mean? It is good to laugh. Now, on this show, it seems I'm always very serious, but if you knew me on the outside, I'm constantly watching stand-up comedians. I love to laugh. I laugh at everything. Things are actually inappropriate to laugh at. I laugh at. But here, you have a lady that just has a small part in the show and she's complaining. It goes on to say, in an episode that aired in 2007, Kat On, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. That might be white supremacy, right? I can't even pronounce this person's last name. That's racist, right? But it says Kat On plays the role of one of two Asians, waitresses, who are taken back to the office by Michael Scott, played by actor Steve Carell. During the episode, Carell's character cannot tell the two women apart. I'm sorry. That's funny already. Telling other male characters on the show, you know how all waitresses look alike? He also puts a black mark on one of the women's arms to differentiate them between the two. That's awesome. And they have a problem with this. It's a joke. And, do Asian people tend to look alike? Yes. There are similarities between races. But them calling out a stereotype isn't problematic. It's just supposed to be funny. Hey, look past it. We all get it. Ha ha ha. And you move on. But when you have people constantly being upset about this stuff, it doesn't really make it fun anymore because you're so worried that if you say something that somebody's going to find it offensive and then you lose your job or your career over it when your true intention wasn't to, hit the entire race or be overly rude about it or upset somebody regarding it. It's just a joke, a lightheartedness, and that you can laugh about it and move on and take life not so seriously. And I think that's important to have comedy, or I think it's important to have comedy in our life because of the things that are happening in this world. And a lot of times we're so stuck in our own milieu, our own environment, that we kind of forget what is happening out there in the world. And there's a lot of tragedy that happens in life, especially in these other countries. And we have it so good in the greatest country that's ever been created, the United States of America, that comedy is there to pull us away from all the tragedy that's in life, the comedic relief. And the left, maybe they love just being in tragedy their entire lives. Maybe they love just looking at that stuff. But this is a way for people to go to work, watch some comedy, relieve some stress, and move on with their life. But the left clearly doesn't want to do that. And now they're going after The Office. I think that went off the air like 10 years. Yeah, it was 10 years ago. I think it was about 10 years ago. But that's how the left handles everything. They handle everything poorly. The Democrats handle everything extremely terribly. And you could see it going from the U.S.-Mexico border, they're handling there, to now Biden wanting to spend $2 trillion and probably more. So now we're looking at, $1.9 trillion for the COVID relief, $2 trillion, we'll call it $2 trillion, $2 trillion for the infrastructure plan. That's $4 trillion already. Guys, the dude's been in office 2 months and he's spending $4 trillion. 2 months. And he's planning on spending more. Like, who's the person that's just going to stop this guy? And then you got AOC saying things are racist, which is typical of the left. You got these smugglers dropping kids off from 14-foot walls. You got people calling out shows from the past because they can't get over a little bit of a joke. And it's just constant. But hey, this is what we expected. I'm not shocked that the left is running the show poorly. I'm not shocked that Democrats don't have a clue. I'm not shocked that Joe Biden doesn't know where he's at. We all knew that this was going to happen. It's not a shock to any of us. We knew that taxes were going to go up. It's the typical Democratic thing when they get put in office. Things go to crap, and now we're having to deal with it. But the hope is that we can find some sort of comedic relief out of this. That's what I love about politics. I take it more of a Michael Knowles approach from the Daily Wire, where he just laughs at everything. I tend to laugh at everything as well. I'm probably not laughing right now because I'm still tired. But with that being said, that is all the news I have for you today. I sincerely appreciate all those that have subscribed to my channel, all those that do watch my videos. And please make sure you leave me a comment about anything. Even if you want to strike up a conversation, you want to know my opinion about something, leave it in the comment section. I will make sure I get to that. But I hope all of you have a lovely day, and I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.